everybody, my name is Felicia. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not, what's up? Today I'm going to be doing my April ramp up, and that's my introduction. So let's go ahead and talk about these books. The first book I read this month was The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, and this book is about three sisters that is drowned in a town called Sparrow, and every summer they rise to possess three young girls to lure young boys back to the ocean to drown them. And what attracted me to this story is that people were comparing it so much to Hocus Pocus, so I'm like, I gotta read that. But this book was just a letdown. The characters were so one-dimensional and just plain and boring, and then there was insta-love in here, and what really kept my interest is that the suspense and the subplots was building up to what I thought was going to be this epic climax, but I was let down because I kind of saw everything coming. Overall, I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. It was predictable, nothing special. Months from now, nobody's going to remember this book, so you should probably pass it. The next book I read was Children of Blood and Bone by Whatthegemini. This book is very popular, hyped up right now, so I really don't want to go over the synopsis, but overall, I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was entertaining, it was enjoyable. My critiques was the beginning of this book was just unbearable. The plot was all over the place, the characters were all over the place. I couldn't really latch on to majority of the main characters because too much shit was going on. The beginning is so fast-paced that it's just dumb. It was brain numbing until you get to like the middle of the book and it slows down, and slows down for this book is normal pacing because it's really fast-paced. So when it slows down, it's like, okay, now we can get to know these characters, and then when you get to know these characters, you have this really great character development. And what made this book get such a high rating for me is the ending that just completely blew me away. I didn't see most of the crap that happened at the ending coming. After reading and listening to a few reviews, I did see a lot of people compare Children of Blood and Bone to the last Avatar, and I must say I have to agree that there are a lot of similarities between the plot and definitely with the characters. But Children of Blood and Bone did have a lot of unique qualities and a lot of different things that I have never seen before in books. So if you do like Avatar The Last Airbender, then you probably will enjoy Children of Blood and Bone too. I have a full review on Children of Blood and Bone, and I will link that in the description box. The next book I read is We Are the Ants by Sean Hutchinson, and I love this book so much. The main character, Henry, just resonated with me and we was vibing. This book follows a boy named Henry who is abducted by aliens sometimes, and the aliens give him this ultimatum that in 144 days the earth is going to explode, but he has all this time to press this button that will save all of humanity. And Henry kind of goes through the pros and the cons, the ups and the downs, just like everything about his decision making, and he's wondering if he should just restart the whole world because so many bad things are just going on in his life right now, and he's just a pessimistic kind of analytical person. And that's why his thought process was like really cool too. Henry wasn't this happy-go-lucky optimistic character. He was just cynical majority of the time. I really enjoyed the undertones of mental illness brought up into this book, and I really liked the science behind this book also. This book was just really thought-provoking, and overall I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Erja and the End of Time, and I buddy read this with my friend Danielle over at TheEntish Reader. I will link her channel in the description box. I wanted to read this book to kind of get out of my comfort zone because I used to really love middle grade books, but now I just see I can't like them. I just can't relate to the characters because they're just so young and innocent, and let's just face it, I'm not really either of those. This was just a really whimsical story that I just couldn't relate to. This story was about Indian mythology, and at certain points in the book when they're introducing you and telling you about all these different gods and goddesses, it was too much information dropping. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna remember half of these gods and goddesses 2 chapters later, and I didn't. Overall, I ended up giving this book 2 out of 2 stars, but maybe if you're in the middle grade, you'll probably enjoy this book a lot more than I did. A lot of the reviews that I did read, people were comparing this to Percy Jackson a lot, and they were saying that this was just more of the Indian version. It just wasn't for me, and that's okay. The next book I read was Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, who is one of my favorite authors, and this is the first science fiction novel written by a Black woman. Kindred follows a woman named Dana who lives in the 1970s and is suddenly transported back into the 1800s during the slave era. Dana soon realizes that every time a little white boy who grows into a man, life is in danger, she jolts back to save him. And then she'll find out that he needs to father her great-great-grandmother, so she has to keep him alive. The character dynamic and the concept of this book is just insane. The main character, Dana, is black, so she's like whisking back to the slave era to save the slave master. And when she's gone, in her world, she's only gone for like hours at a time, but to them, when she goes back to her time, she's gone for years. So she'll go back and she's always the same age, and she goes to save one of the slave masters. So the white people don't trust her because they don't know what she is, and then the black people don't really trust her because they're like, hey, why are you helping the slave master? And then the boy that she saves, Rufus, grows up and does like some really despicable things, but he can't die because if he dies, then she will die. And this book was just entertaining and just crazy. You gotta read it. Overall, I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Octavia E. Butler writing is just so amazing, and just it has a realistic quality to it that I'm like always thinking when I read her books, like, oh my god, this is possible. The next book I read is Daughter of a Siren Queen, and this book was just a disappointment. I was so disappointed in this book. Daughter of a Pirate King was just so much fun and excitement that this book was just plop. There is really no character development at all in this book. The main character, Alosa, is just talking about people that's around her. She's like, hey, this is my first mate and she's black and she's cool. Hey, go get me some water. And that's all you'll see of the other characters in the story, which was so annoying. The villain sucked and the plot was just predictable. So overall, I ended up giving this book 1 out of 5 stars. And it's just so disappointing when you love the first book in a series and the second book is just terrible. The last book I read was Dredd Nation by Justina Ireland, and this book was amazing. This one, hands down, is my favorite this month. During the Civil War, there is a zombie outbreak. Now America is trying to re-establish itself, and one of those ways is the government introduced an educational act called the Native and Negro Re-Education Act. This act required Native American children and also Negro children to go to a combat school to learn how to fight zombies, and they will be the ones that fight zombies. Our main character, Jane, is the daughter of a very wealthy white woman, and she is biracial. But for both of their safety, nobody can know who Jane's real mother is. So Jane is sent off to one of these combat schools. So Jane has been sent off to a combat school to learn how to fight, and while she's at school, she ends up getting involved into so much trouble. She's a very inquisitive, outspoken person, and Jane is absolutely hilarious. The plot was just really great. I don't have a lot of negative things to say about this book. There were some things that did irk my nerves, but that's just me nitpicking. I'm just loving all these fictional books coming out about systematic oppression and just racism and America's shitty past. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but I feel like dialogue creates understanding, and you don't fix shit by ignoring it. So yeah, and that is it for today, you guys. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.